The hardest part is selling your stuff or packing your stuff up. It's daunting, but once you're actually doing it, it is so freeing. It just feels amazing. It feels like you're on vacation all the time. Hello and welcome back to the channel, you guys. Today I'm filming a video that I've been wanting to film forever. We have been living out of Airbnbs for just under a year now, and so I wanted to share basically the high level pros and like the high level cons, and then also share just like a ton of tips so that you can find a rental that like fits your needs, as what you expected when you get there, and to get a good deal. So a little context about us and why we're living out of Airbnbs. We got married in 2018 and then we had a son in 2021. So we have our little family going and we have big goals and ambitions of buying a home hopefully in the next few years, but haven't quite felt ready. We are living in the Bay Area together. We kind of got brought there with work. We were living there for 6 years and just renting. And we had a big opportunity this year. Dustin got a new job and it's a fully remote position. And right now I'm a stay-at-home mom, which gave us just the freedom to live wherever. And I think we're really inspired by like people in the pandemic just living everywhere all over the world really. And we were like, why can't we do that? Like, why don't we try it out? So we actually sold all of our belongings. I have a video how we downsized 90% of our stuff. We had dreams to move to the mountains, but moving like directly to a place we didn't know that well felt a bit extreme. And so we wanted to test out a few different places.
We looked at Colorado, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, Utah.
A little sneak peek preview into our life. We've settled on Whitefish and we're gonna try it for this year. But I feel like we only feel really confident about our decision to actually really try out Whitefish because we tried the other things and kind of realized they weren't quite the right fit. So it's definitely a really, really good option if you're trying to figure out where you want to move, but you don't want to fully commit to something. That's a little background on us. Let's hop into the video. We're gonna give you guys like the high level pros and cons first. I have them in my notes app, so I'm gonna be referring to my phone. Let's get into it. So the first high level pro is that living out of Airbnbs can be just as cheap as your normal rent. Renting the Airbnbs, at least out here in the Rocky Mountain states, has been cheaper or equivalent to our rent in the Bay Area. So your host will cover all of your utilities and internet. And for us in California, utilities are really, really expensive. So once we started costing out all of our monthly expenses, we were actually able to find better homes here, like in Montana and not Boulder. Colorado's a little bit more expensive, but especially in Idaho, we were in these like beautiful houses. Like we are looking at the mountains right now and it's like an equivalent price in a big house, equivalent price to what we were paying in the Bay. So it could be really, really nice, depends where you go, but I think it could be cheaper.
And then another pro of living in Airbnbs is a lot of the like consumable items and things that you're buying for your house to maintain it on a regular basis are just included. A lot of the consumables as far as cleaning supplies, spices,
olive oil.
Yeah, olive oil. There are also a lot of like household items, sheets, things for your kitchen, repairs that you'd be doing around the house. So I guess not having those expenses helps you save a lot of money as well.
The next pro, at least for us, is that you're saving money on vacations because you're already on a vacation. If you're staying in an Airbnb, like in the town you've already been living in, I guess this doesn't really apply, but for us, we've been living all over. So we're staying in these brand new places and we're just doing like day trips and weekend trips away from the Airbnb. We don't have to go that far. We're not craving that like trip to Hawaii or like a ski trip because we're already living in the vacation. So for us, we're not really spending money on traveling hardly as much.
So every time we were moving between Airbnbs, we typically like put like a 2 or 3 day gap over a weekend, go and stay and try some little towns along the way while we were traveling between places.
Yeah, we went up to McCall, Idaho, amazing. We stayed in Moab, which is really, really fun. You would be paying like your mortgage if you owned your house during that time, and we were only paying for just the hotel on the way, which is really nice. Okay, let's do the next high level pro, which for me is really learning what I want in a house, what we want in a house. If you don't own a home right now and you're wanting to buy a home in the future, oh my gosh, we have learned a crazy amount about what we like and what we don't like, from like appliances to like fixtures and finishes, like the layout of a home. For instance, we stayed in this condo that was 3 stories and we just never thought we were like condo people people in the modern condo, but we loved it. And now we're actually gonna rent a townhouse that's multiple stories for like our lease for the next year. And we would have never probably considered it even in the past without staying there.
Yeah, we know that we don't like these open format showers that don't have a door or anything. You
get
just don't.
cold.
You just don't get any steam, and you're just like trying to stay by the water to stay warm. So, I mean, we had some really nice aesthetic showers that were big and roomy, but they weren't the most comfortable.
Okay, moving into the cons, Dustin wants me to call them the challenges. So the first challenge we faced was getting our mail. Definitely figure out if you can receive mail at your Airbnb. Most Airbnbs actually don't allow access to mail, at least from our experience. Most of them have like a locked mailbox, and so getting packages has been a bit challenging. Some of the hosts have been really understanding and helpful with getting our packages, and then others, well, one really was just like, I don't know what to tell you, good luck. So I feel like the workaround for this, especially with Amazon, I feel like that's the place most people are ordering from, is using an Amazon locker. So just looking up like the nearest locker at a grocery store or wherever near where you're staying, and you can just send your stuff there and pick it up.
Yeah, the other thing is too, like FedEx, UPS, and Amazon, all like for smaller packages, it's not unusual for them to put them into the
mailbox,
the
little
locked
mailbox.
mailbox. It's kind of important, and a good tip is put in the notes that you want your packages delivered to the door.
Yeah, and I think in UPS you can also like have an option to have it wait for you at the UPS store as well. So you have to get a little creative, but eventually you'll get your packages.
Another con of like being in Airbnbs long term, when you're in an Airbnb for like a couple days, it's not really a big deal, but when you're gonna be there for, 3, 4, 5 weeks or longer, there's a bit of like a scavenger hunt to find everything. Every time you get to a new place, the kitchen is laid out different. A lot of the things in the kitchen are budget or low quality, so the knives are dull, the pans are cheap, and it's not necessarily that it's bad, it's just over time it gets kind of annoying.
It gets really old.
Yeah, you feel uninspired in the kitchen for sure.
An additional con or challenge we face living in these Airbnbs is having access to storage. A lot of the houses, they are like locked up. The closets, the garage. Basically every house we've stayed in, the owners actually live in the house for part of the year. We're kind of in vacation type towns. I would definitely investigate to see like in photos or in the description if closets are available to use, especially if you're traveling with stuff like we have toddler toys and gear. And so we do need those storage closets and like even a garage if you have like a mountain bike and skis. If you don't have access to a garage or like a storage shed, it's really awkward just having those floating around hallways and around the house. The next con or challenge of living in rentals is the sleeping situation. The mattress, the pillows, kind of like the light in the room or the noise, it varies a lot place to place. And even if you dig into reviews and try to gather as much information as possible, we were definitely still caught off guard by some really, really uncomfortable mattresses. I mean, like old ones that are a little bit concave. And so if you're a sensitive sleeper, definitely like prioritize that and skimming the reviews. And you may just want to bring some of your own like creature comforts from home, your favorite pillow, even a mattress topper. I know that sounds extreme, but we could have used a mattress topper on a few of these beds. And like he said, like if it's just a few days at an Airbnb, it's okay. But like we were staying at this house for what, like 10 weeks? That's a long time to be. This bed's fine, but some of the other beds I could not have done for 10 weeks personally. Okay, now that we've hit the major pros and cons, we're gonna get into a fat list of tips because man, we have a lot. Okay, the first one is that you will often find the property listed on multiple rental sites. So Airbnb, VRBO, someone's private site, maybe they have an Instagram page for it. Also Furnished Finder, that's for travel nurses. The house we're in now, we actually found on Furnished Finder. So it's nice to see sometimes there's more reviews, different photos, different rates, better rates. So definitely shop around, try to find the house. Do you have any tips on like how to find the house? I feel like Dustin would like find the host's name and try to find them online, right? You could find like their LinkedIn page. And a lot of times they want you to book direct. Airbnb, it's, I guess, kind of unethical to try to hop off Airbnb. But if you can find like their own personal contact, you can contact the host that way.
Another tip is too, like, especially now, the price of Airbnb and all their fees, all the cleaning fees and everything else. It's like Airbnb has gotten really ridiculously expensive, with the exception if you go over 30 days, the discount on the entire stay stay, like cuts it to like 50% of the cost per night. And then you're only paying one cleaning fee for the entire stay typically. So it does become a lot more
Affordable,
economically
yeah.
viable, yeah.
And we would always use the nightly rate, how we calculated out the cost. And so we tried to stay around the $100 a night range. That was kind of our budget. And some of the houses were a bit cheaper than that. And then some were more of a splurge, but we tried to keep our average for like all of our stays to around 100 a night, which was comparable to our previous rent. Another quick one I wanted to throw in a tip. If the photos aren't super robust on the listing and you feel like you don't have a good idea of the house, I would try to look up a real estate listing, kind of like the last time the house was sold. If it hasn't been sold in a while, you're not gonna be able to find it. But we found a lot of like pictures of the house, additional photos that really gave us a better idea of how
What the yard looked like.
What the yard looked like, kind of like the layout of the house. And another really good one Dustin is super good at is going onto Google Maps. And even if the address isn't listed, because on Airbnb it's not shared with you until you booked or closer to the date.
You can often go on Street View and find it.
You go on Street View and find it. You can find like, I don't know, he could always find it based on the shape of the
Yeah.
house and the backyard. And then we would do like Street View, and then you turn yourself into the little walking person, that little guy.
Yeah.
And then we would like walk down the streets around
See
to
where
see
like kids parks are.
where
And
parks were, like if it was walkable, if
there's
the
good coffee shops nearby.
if the neighbors, like if the houses nearby looked, you know, polished, or it's a nice street, or if it's more of a like junky street, to give a better idea of the house, because sometimes just an isolated photo, their photos make it look better than maybe it really is. Our next tip for you guys is to try to book brand new listings. These are listings that don't have any reviews or very, very few reviews. I believe it's the first 3 or maybe 2 to 4 stays at the house get like a pretty deep discount on Airbnb. So that's always really nice. But what I like to find specifically is a brand new listing that is listed by a superhost. So a superhost on Airbnb is a super qualified host that has often multiple listings and really, really good reviews. So they are someone that's dependable. You can just count on the house being clean, the communication to be good, the description to be accurate. So I feel like finding a superhost brand new listing is kind of like striking gold, because you're getting this new booking rate. No one else has booked it yet, and you know that it's going to be amazing because you can trust them. Would I book a brand new listing that no one else has reviewed yet and it's a brand new host that hasn't rented before? It kind of depends. For us, Dustin needs a really quiet work environment. He works from home and we have a toddler. And so I feel like we have more at stake than maybe just like a single person or a couple. So for us, I probably wouldn't book that unless it was a crazy, crazy deal.
You just don't want to like risk it too
Risk
much.
it or gamble it.
Because you have to stay too long.
Exactly. And another thing I was going to mention, another way you can also book outside of like the typical Airbnb VRBO situation. Dustin's sister actually stayed in Austin for like a month recently, and she found an amazing, amazing deal just like on Facebook groups. So I highly recommend going on Facebook groups, just like sublets and rentals in the city, and finding stuff that way. I think you can get a way, way cheaper deal and avoid Airbnb fees. But I feel like this is if you're more flexible, because there's not really a real contract, even if someone like writes something up. Airbnb does have your back. You do have that insurance. If you just like go stay at a random person's house, I think there's just like way more on the line to go wrong potentially. So it's kind of like weighing basically the risk of it with your potential cost savings and where you fall like on that little teeter-totter.
One of the big benefits with Airbnb, it's a little bit higher cost, but you don't have to put up a deposit.
Yeah,
Which when you're staying in back-to-back Airbnbs, it means
up.
you could potentially have to put up like 2 pretty substantial deposits, which could add up to be like $6,000 or $7,000.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to like budget for that if you're gonna try and take advantage of 10% savings or something like that.
Yeah, so for us, Airbnb has been more worth it. Right now, I mentioned we're in this furnished finder, and it is cheaper than the Airbnbs here, but I feel like the house wasn't exactly what we expected because we didn't have all those Airbnb reviews to go off of. Would I book through furnished finder again? Maybe not. Like I really do think Airbnb is a good thing, even like with the fees.
Another important tip, when you're going like back-to-back stays and Airbnbs and you've kind of given up your like home base of where you live, like one of the most stressful parts of like the whole trip is making sure that you have a secure place to go once your time expires at the place that you're at. So I think it's really important to book out like a month or 2 months ahead of what you're currently in. You can usually cancel.
Yeah, in some places in really hot markets like New York City, like it's it's not cancelable after 48 hours, but we're finding in the markets we're in, a lot of them offer up to 30 days out, you get full refund. So we've been keeping a calendar basically of like what's the last day to cancel, and then we have actually canceled a lot and rebooked other places, but it's nice having the security.
I think it's important to secure a property, and then you can like kind of keep your options open. If something comes up that's a cheaper or better place to stay, you can kind of like swap yourself out. It's pretty easy to do that with Airbnb. We've never had any problem doing it.
It's no sweat because it's like it's in the logistics of it. You don't even have to send a message why. You can just say like we are canceling, it's within the period, and then rebook the other one. It takes like 10 minutes. So that's been really good. And I feel like a lot of places actually do pop up. That's another tip, is to continue, just keep looking, check all the time. It gets exhausting, but you can save a lot of money. I think about a month out, people start, I guess it's the 30 days when we're canceling. Ours are popping up and other people's are too. And so new ones, fresh ones that you didn't see in the market will pop up that, yeah, someone has just recently canceled, then you can snag them. So always be browsing. This next tip is probably a given, but read every single review. Like even if there are 250 reviews, I would read every single one, because this gave us the best idea of the true kind of like circumstances of the house. You can also see on a scale of 1 to 5 for each category, like value, cleanliness, location, how people rate it. And I don't know, different things may be more important to you than other things. Like cleanliness is really big for us, so I want a 5 out of 5 on cleanliness. If something is like a 3, that scares me and I'm just not gonna go for it. And it kind of just depends on what you're looking for in the house and what you need. Like if you're really, like I said, sensitive sleeper, definitely read comments about noise with noisy neighbors, or there's a dog next door, it's close to a highway. Like the Airbnb host,
there may be like a red flag, a major like a deal breaker for you that will pop up. Like one example is we were booking one Airbnb that said it was whole house, and come to find out after we booked it, we were asking a question about the yard. It's like, well, you don't get to use the yard. It's like,
it didn't say, they don't say what it is, but they leave everything out. So there was another tenant in the basement, and it was like, it showed a picture of a whole house and it looks like it, but then it wasn't.
If you have any doubts, ask the question. The other thing is too, is like if a property meets all of your needs, but maybe there's like one deal breaker, you can reach out to the host, and if you need to use the garage, let them know. And they may say, well, we normally don't let tenants use the garage, but in your case, we'll leave it unlocked and you'll be able to use it.
If you're just super friendly, super like complimentary of their home, and just like, it's beautiful, we love it, we're so excited. Like I'm always just like, we're really clean, we're really quiet, we're really respectful, with the house is beautiful, we can't wait to be there. Like they just want to know you're normal. You're not going to trash their house. You're going to treat it with respect. I've even found that like we don't have pets, but a lot of houses, it seems like they do teeter-totter on like pets or no pets. So if it says no pets, but you have a small pet that's well behaved, I think if you reach out to a host, they will be like pretty flexible with it. Depends on the person, but I do think people are more willing to say yes than no to a lot of like simple requests.
Another tip is too, like when you're going to an area, do as much research as you can about kind of neighborhoods, where you want to be, where the restaurants, where the action is. You really have to like, weigh out the property or the house that you're getting versus like how close you're going to be to a lot of the things that you want to see or do. And in my case with like working remote, I only have so much free time as far as exploring the area. So it is important to me to, be close to the things that I want to see and do. A good example is you may have like an hour in the morning where you could run out and go grab a coffee, or kind of like go for a run or go for a walk around some area or whatever before you start work. But if you have to like drive 30 minutes or 25 minutes or 15 minutes, you're probably not going to do that.
Yeah.
So
I was just thinking another good thing to do if you're unfamiliar with an area, ask your friends and family if they know anyone that lives there. I was definitely texting like friends of friends to be like, hey, we're looking at this neighborhood, at this Airbnb, is like this a cool place to stay, or am I like way off base? And it's just nice to get like a local's perspective, just because I don't know, sometimes I feel like I can't totally trust my internet research from afar. So yeah, don't be afraid to reach out. I think we've mentioned checking the fine print, but definitely check the fine print and just all the listings about the house, all the information and details, like the beds. Like some of the listings don't include if it's a king or a queen, and like that is very important to us. We want a king size bed. We don't really want a full size bed. So you can always ask that question. Also, AC and heating. Somehow we missed that on one of our houses this summer. There was no air conditioning. I assumed there was foolishly, and so it was just hot and a lot of fans and it wasn't that comfortable. So just double check that all those amenities that you're hoping for are going to be there. Another thing to check for in the fine print is if there's a cap on the utility bill, because some places will like back bill you or like charge you for like the heating charges if it surpasses like $200 for the month or whatever it is. There has been no limitations on utilities or like usage for the rentals we've stayed in, but we've heard of, or I've heard on YouTube of other people getting really high bills from their host afterwards.
Another thing on like the cost side of it is the fixed cost of being in an Airbnb for a month. Sometimes you are in a pretty good HOA that has like amazing pools or gyms or like tennis courts. It can have a golf course, and those are things that kind of like you take for granted if you live there. But if you're gonna be there for 4 or 5 weeks, you might really take advantage of it. So
we went to the pool every day at the condo we were at in Colorado, and it was amazing.
Another thing is we haven't had to do one lick of yard work for the last 9 months.
Yeah, no yard
so
work.
So nice, no yard work.
And no deep cleaning. You're just doing like light cleans. If you're only in a place for like 6 or 10 weeks, you don't really have to like get into the gutters and like really clean all the cracks and crevices. Nice. Okay, our last and final tip for you guys is work hard for that stellar review. The review that you are getting as a guest on your Airbnb page. I do think it really matters, especially if you have a special request or accommodation that you want. Again, can I bring my little dog? Can we have kids in your house? If you have those great reviews that you are a trusted person that, you know, cares for a house, like our reviews are glowing, I'm not gonna lie. It's like, they left the house so clean and sparkling. They're great, respectful tenants. Like they were amazing guests. I think it's just in your favor for future rentals with future hosts. One thing is definitely having really, really good communication, just like being really timely with your responses, being extra friendly, letting them know when you're going to arrive to the house. I feel like hosts are kind of like on edge when it comes to like check-in process and check out. Like they want it to be positive when you're checking in and then checking out. They want to get that turned over really quick and like seamlessly for the next guest. And so we'll let them know when we're leaving. I'll let them know a few days in advance. Hey, we're gonna leave extra early on Saturday, just letting you know. And then we do a lot of cleaning at the house, right? Nothing crazy, but we do clean.
Yeah, I just think in general we try and leave things better than we found them. You know, we're trying to be as respectful as we can to people's homes, and we want a house to be nice when we come into it, so we try and leave it nice so that the next Airbnb tenant has a nice house to come to.
Yeah, I feel like you kind of just like reap what you sow. So like, you know, we'll leave some toilet paper behind. Like I'm never gonna leave no rolls of toilet paper at the house. I'm not buying like a huge Costco pack, but we'll leave some toilet paper, maybe like some hand soap, some dish soap, just a few little things. If I burned out their candle, I'll leave them a new candle. I think it's just a nice gesture to leave those things behind. And then we'll often just like fix any little bumps and bruises. Like we are living a life in the house. Things do happen. Yeah. We have a toddler. So
I can't help myself. I'll do some repairs to a house if not major stuff, but
Dustin will fix things. He was like tightening up all the pots and pans with the loose handles here. Like we always have a magic eraser for like little bumps and bruises and like scuffs on the walls. We have a 2-year-old, so that just naturally happens. And just trying to get the house back to a really, really good place, I think definitely works in your favor for future rentals. And then you can always rent again and like ask to rent off of Airbnb if you have a good like, you know, relationship with a host. I think if you want to stay at that house again, we haven't done that quite yet because we've been kind of moving on to the next. You can always, you know, rent off the app with them and get an even better deal.
You just want to be careful leaving any negative reviews. You can get like retaliatory like
responses.
People we've heard of hosts retaliating and like saying that you did things that maybe you didn't do. I don't know. So I don't know that it's really worth it if you want to leave, you know, a personal message like, hey, you know, things weren't perfect or whatever else. But unfortunately, the way that the app is set up, it's probably not in your benefit to leave a negative review.
That's absolutely true.
Unfortunately. But
that's the truth of it. And then one last really sweet thing I actually wanted to add was just like making friends on this trip has been so fun. It's just been so nice meeting new people and like new faces. And this is so corny, but I feel like everyone is more similar than not. Like place to place we stayed in all these different states, and everyone is just the same and wants the same things out of life. At least for us in this life stage, our young family, we just want to have other wonderful, kind people to be around, to have fun, to barbecue, to walk to the park, to just like do life with. So it's been amazing meeting people, and everybody's been so friendly this whole trip. It's been actually really easy making friends, which has been a cool thing. I thought maybe we'd feel a little bit lonely, but we haven't at all. It's felt very like full of love and friendship.
It kind of forces you to meet a lot of new people. You're not going to have all of your close friends that you spend all your regular time with, so you get to meet a lot of people. You have an interesting story. Yeah, it's been great. We've met some hopefully lifelong friends on this adventure. Yeah.
Okay, you guys, that is everything actually. Thank you so much for watching this video. I think it will be a long video. I'll try to edit it down a bit, but I think I'm gonna include most things in here. If you're watching it, you probably are like wanting as much info as possible, and we're definitely sharing a ton. So if you have more questions, please comment them below. Anything like random, anything specific, any questions at all, ask and we'll get down there and comment back. Yeah, thank you for coming on the channel with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and if you're on the fence of maybe doing something like this and afraid to take the leap, it's been incredible. I strongly recommend it for anybody who has the opportunity to.
The hardest part is selling your stuff or packing your stuff up. It's daunting, but once you're actually doing it, it is so freeing. It just feels amazing. It feels like you're on vacation all the time. It's really, really good. So we're at the end of our journey. We're only in this rental for a few more weeks, and then we're moving into our, year lease.
That'll be a
new adventure.
A new adventure. Sad but sweet, but it's got to end eventually.
All right, you guys, I'll catch you in my next one. Bye.